welcome to the Entrepreneurial Musician from Hits Academy. It's been a while. A newsletter, coaching service, podcast, and blog preparing today's musicians for tomorrow's realities. Today's episode is titled, Sitting with Uncertainty is a Superpower. Quickly, thank you to Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for TEM. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hits Artist Model Tuba Mouthpiece. You can find out more at parkermouthpieces.com. or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All right. It has been a hot minute. I actually did not realize that it's been 9 months. That is the longest hiatus that TEM has undergone. There was a pretty long one during the pandemic as well. The good news, my apologies for not showing up. I'm sure that that each one of you listening to my voice right now has maybe felt a little like a rudderless ship, and you probably couldn't put your finger on it. And it was definitely lacking me bloviating into a microphone. No, but in all seriousness, thank you. If you are back, thank you. Welcome. If you're new, and it's good to be talking with you again. So this episode is called "Sitting with Uncertainty is a Superpower." This comes from a quote from an incredible audiobook by Brené Brown titled The Power of Vulnerability. I cannot possibly recommend this audiobook any more highly. It's actually a series of talks from a seminar that she taught a number of years ago, and it's only 6.5 hours long, which if you don't do audiobooks sounds really long. It's actually not. It's very easy to get through. The problem is that it was one of those things where I had to pause it like every few minutes to jot down something. So it actually took me a long time to get through, but in a good way. I actually this is how long it's been since I spoke to you last. I actually made the notes for this episode apparently 8 months ago, and I forgot. So I sat down to come up with an episode, and I'm like, I literally just have to turn on the camera. So I need to actually re-listen to this thing by Brené Brown because it was really powerful and very impactful on me. It inspired me to bail on TEM. I'm just kidding. The full quote is, being able to sit with uncertainty is a superpower. Again, that's Brené Brown. The problem is that can be very much easier said than done. Uncertainty is baked into everything that is meaningful. This is one of the big points that she made in this book. One thing that I experienced in 2024 was some tension on the performing front. I performed for the first time with the Kennedy Center Opera. I performed for the first time with the North Carolina Symphony. I performed for the first time with Rodney Marsalis. And so it was great. It was more playing for me in 2024. That's one of the reasons why I haven't been here than probably the previous 4 years combined. 2020 and 2021, things came back slowly for me, and I'll be honest too, on a human level, it felt like things are coming back faster for some people than me. Anyway, I had a really great year, but there was a lot of tension baked into my performing because I did a lot of meaningful performing in 2024, and that is good. I'm going to circle back to that a little bit later here in this episode. The thing to know is that literally every successful entrepreneurial path is uncertain. If the path was obvious, many others would have taken it already. That, as you know, it's a map. That is a predetermined, widely distributed map, means that you're not going to make any money doing that. And you're probably not even going to get any impact other than financial either. You have to start before you can see the end. That's one of my favorite Seth Godin quotes. And obviously, when I am using a map or Google Maps at this point to get from point A from my house to a store, I have the end in sight, right? An entrepreneurial path, you can start and then it's going to morph, or you can start and then you have to stop, or you have to start and then pause and then keep going, or you course correct, or you do a 90-degree turn, or you do a full 180. The point is that there is going to be uncertainty. Anything that you do, there's going to be uncertainty. The problem is that my instincts tell me to do things that will lead to more certainty because uncertainty feels so incredibly bad. there are certain things that we're wired to have certainty in terms of a food source, in terms of having a mate and being able to procreate, etc. At least I am. But the point here is that that entrepreneurial uncertainty is a lot different than the need for food, right? But those instincts inside of me, they all scream equally at me, is that I want to feel certain all the time. The problem is it's not possible to feel certain all the time if you are doing meaningful work. It's not that it's difficult, it's literally impossible. So the goal here is to identify the uncertainty within you as you are experiencing it and keep in mind three things. First, uncertainty is actually a good sign. It means that you are on the right path. Two, your instincts will tell you, consciously or subconsciously, that you need to do something or change something about your approach to eliminate uncertainty. And you need to remember that that is very bad advice. I'm trying to figure out, I said first and then two, which is already chaos. I'm trying to think if there's a way that I could say three, that would be chaos to both first and two. Lastly, no one is great at sitting with uncertainty all the time. The goal is to slowly get better at sitting with uncertainty over time. But that does not mean that any given situation or moment will be easy to navigate on that front. This is similar to what I tell people in my practice coaching, is that we cannot run emotionally with any single data point, or we shouldn't. We all do, and we shouldn't. What I mean by that is that if you are improving on a passage over time, and it's getting better, there's going to occasionally be, there's this rep was here, and then this rep was here, and then there's one that's like really, really, really great. You can attach yourself emotionally to that one and say, I'm amazing, or this passage, I've learned it. And then it comes back down here. This is a huge drop, right? From that one that was like abnormally high, according to the track, and then one that was a little bit low. And then you can say, actually, I'm a fraud. I never knew it that well, et cetera. When you look at the overall trend of the thing, then you are improving slowly over time. That's how playing an instrument works. If you're listening to me, you know this. It's the same thing with the business side of things, which is that no matter how much Brene Brown, who is one of the most thoughtful people on this subject that I have ever encountered, and I've read and listened and watched a lot of people talking on this subject, and she's truly special. She does not, and that's one of the things she shares in this program, is that she deals with uncertainty and feeling uncomfortable all the time because she's a human. So not even she gets to skip this part. So just know that you're still going to be filled with doubt and filled with uncertainty and filled with discomfort at times, even if you are improving. So again, number one, uncertainty is actually a good sign. Number two, your instincts are going to tell you that you need to do things to get rid of the uncertainty, and that is bad. And three, no one's great at sitting with uncertainty all the time. So if you are getting better and then you're suddenly filled with uncertainty, it's actually, this circles back to number one. It means that you're on the right path. Okay, this week's quote is from Yorgos Lanthimos, and it is, "Uncertainty helps keep actors on edge." I love that quote. And I'm like, I have an episode and a half left in this podcast that I will recommend, called Talking Sopranos, which is two of the actors from the Sopranos, Michael Imperioli and Steve Sciarippa. And the two of them break down all, I believe it's 86 episodes. There's an episode of this podcast for each episode of the Sopranos show. And they break down each episode. They talk to actors, directors, writers, costume people, et cetera. They interview them at the beginning of each episode, and then they break down. It's this incredible peek behind the curtain of the acting world. And there are tons of, like an in-depth one. It's really fascinating. A lot of things that I did not know. Some things I would have guessed, some things I wouldn't. I'm a huge fan of The Sopranos, obviously. If I'm like 80 something episodes into this thing, it's taken me a long time to get through it. But there's a lot of parallels with music, which is not at all surprising, right? Uncertainty helps keep musicians on edge as well. I would encourage you to seek out musical opportunities that have uncertainty, and it is going to help you to have the courage to sit with uncertainty on the business side of things. Find new musicians to play with, find new genres to play, learn a new instrument and play it in public. Write a song if you've never written one. There are a lot of examples, and you could come up with a list of 4 or 5 in under a minute if you brainstorm this. I mentioned that I made my Kennedy Center Opera debut in 2024. Um, it was actually this was an Offenbach opera that was reimagined and reset in Prohibition era New Orleans. And so I was actually playing sousaphone, and I was the pit, if you will, was actually a band that was on stage in this bar, and so I was on stage for the entire opera, and I was in costume, and it was so this is my first time playing with an opera, my first time being in costume, other than a tuxedo that matches what everybody else does. And I was in the center of the stage, and this was my first time ever playing sousaphone in my career. I didn't have a marching band growing up in my hometown. I did not do it in college. I mean, I'm literally mean the first time. I mean, I'd played notes on a sousaphone before. I had never performed on a sousaphone, even a Dixie gig for 4 people in some empty bar. This was the first time. I had to go to my friend Mike Nickens' house to have him show me the best way to set up the instrument. If you've never noticed, like the oh geez, how name is it called, the crook? This is when I'm going to start to lose my tuba street cred real fast. There's the bit is part of it. I know that, but it's actually there's a lot of ways to angle the bell. It's more complicated than it looks to the uninitiated. Put it that way. I went to Mike Nickens' house, and he like showed me the optimum way to also balance it, like on your shoulder, etc. So this was one of the most interesting and challenging 3-week stretches of my career. It was this really cool thing where part of it was like ripping like second line things, which I've done on the tuba many, many times. I've been to the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival 4 times. I've spent hours in the gospel tent there, in the jazz tent, watching street musicians there. I'm very comfortable. I do a very good job of faking being a New Orleans musician. But then the other thing is like, so one foot is there, and then the other foot was in the opera world, where there were singers who, some absolutely wonderful, wonderful soloists who were singing like recitative type stuff. And so there was like sometimes beat 2 was being held for a lot longer, or beat 3 came or sooner or late, etc. So it was both exposed soft opera, touchy tempo, dynamic stuff, but also like ripping second line stuff. And it was combined into one book. And it was amazing. It was totally uncomfortable at first, like totally uncomfortable. I'm playing a sousaphone, which is like over your head, but playing opera it was all kind of surreal. It was amazing. I even got a quote that I got to pull out of the Washington Post, which when you're a tuba player, you do not get direct shout outs from the Washington Post very often, which was / ever. So it was amazing. But why am I bringing all this up? I am standing on the edge of making some pretty bold changes with the non-performing part of my career, which is one of the reasons why TEM is back, and I'm talking into this microphone. All I know is that playing gigs like Songbird, like what I played with the Kennedy Center Opera, helped me to have the courage to venture into the unknown of the business side of things. And I've recently been thinking about this, and most non-musicians don't have experiences like that to be able to fall back on. So I'm filled with gratitude that us musicians do, right? Every single person listening to my voice right now has been either chosen to or been forced to get out of their comfort zone in music, even on an instrument that they've been playing for decades. And it's always so good and so invigorating. And I'm very lucky that I have already, I've even already experienced some of that. It's January 14th. I got a call the other night at 9:30 p.m. and at 9 a.m. I was driving north to fill in a very last minute emergency basis with Rodney Marsalis. And then I drove home afterwards because I didn't have childcare for the next morning. I got home at 3 a.m. And that's the stuff that keeps you on your toes. And I just have to remember that if I'm that fearless on the tuba, which I bet most, if not all of you are on your respective instruments, that I can also be that fearless on the non-performing side of my career. And so when I get that little voice that says, what if this thing bombs? Then yeah, what if it bombs? Who cares? I learned something from it. Lather, rinse, repeat, just keep on moving forward. So this is a good reminder to me that I can do this, that uncertainty helps actors, musicians, musical entrepreneurs keep our edge. And that uncertainty actually means that I am on the right path. And if I keep that in mind, then I can sit with it. And that is a superpower. Thank you so much for being back, for being new, for listening to my voice. There's an awful lot of options out there if you hadn't noticed, and you're listening to me. And so I very much appreciate you for listening. And that is going to do it for another episode of The Entrepreneurial Musician.